What is up, guys? This is the Casual Wrestling Live Hangout, where each and every day we pick one of pro wrestling's biggest topics to break down and open up the discussion live on YouTube. If you enjoy the channel, please make sure to support us on the Casual Wrestling membership on YouTube. I'm going to have that link up in the description of this video as soon as this is over, but memberships start at about $2.99 a month. If you don't want to join on a monthly basis, you can support the show through YouTube Super Chats, which guarantee that your voice is heard at the end of each episode. The new format of the show is simple. One topic, I take about 10 to 15 minutes to give you my initial opinions, then we open it up for the comments and chat to weigh in on the topic of the day. If you miss the live stream, the conversation continues in the comment section, so make sure to continue giving your opinions. I try to respond to as many comments as possible every episode. This is your Monday Night Raw review, which means we're going to catch up all the casual fans on what they missed or help you break down what you watched last night. If you don't remember, the casual scale looks like this, with 10 being a perfect match, 9 being a classic match, 8 being amazing, 7 is great, 6 is good, 5 is average okay, 4 is confusing, 3 is bad, 2 is awful, and 1 is unwatchable. So let's jump right into it. As always, let's break down the show in the order that we saw it, starting with the cold opening of Drew McIntyre coming out as Michael Cole was explaining our commentary situation, which it seems that I haven't tuned into Pat McAfee today, so I don't know what's going on, but he had some sort of family emergency that he had to tend to, so he couldn't be at Monday Night Raw. I just assumed it was part of a storyline thing, but it seems like there was something real going on there. But so we started off with Drew McIntyre coming out and doing what Drew does best these days. Drew grabbing a microphone and talking is the best thing in pro wrestling. In the last year and a half, Drew McIntyre has completely transformed into somebody that I thought was boring when he came out, who now, when Drew McIntyre grabs a microphone, I pay attention. And so Drew did what Drew does. He came out, he addressed the crowd, he did his thing. And it's all great. Everything about this story is great. My problem is, still with this story, and we talked about yesterday, I don't understand the goofy bracelet. I just don't understand the significance of the beaded bracelet. It doesn't, to me, for a story that everything is going so right, to introduce something so goofy as a beaded bracelet. I would understand if CM Punk was a father and this was something his daughter made. I get it. I get the significance. I'd understand it. Even if this was something that AJ had made for him, I'd understand the significance. But the significance of a bracelet that was made by a random fan that has his dog and his wife's name on it, I just don't think that fits into the level of maturity that's involved in this story. This is a great story that we're witnessing right now. It doesn't need a gimmicky, hokey prop in order to keep it interesting. So when I score these things, when I talk about the casual scale, what I try to do is talk about the effectiveness of the segment. And while Drew McIntyre, extremely effective every time he gets a microphone and he talks, and anytime we get the Drew McIntyre CM Punk segment, it is effective, but I don't think the bracelet part of this is as effective as I don't know whose idea it was. I don't know if this is a CM Punk thing. I don't know if this is a WWE thing. I don't know if this was a Drew McIntyre thing, but I just don't love the hokiness of a 75-cent bracelet. Like the fan can't make another one. Like, it's irreplaceable. This is not like a family heirloom. This is a bracelet given to CM Punk by a fan, and it feels a little bit goofy to me. So to open the show, I don't think this was as hot of a start as the last couple weeks have been. So I give this a 6 out of 10. I still think it's good. I still think it's okay. I don't think that this story needs that. I don't think it has to have that to make sense, because Drew McIntyre comes off as a grown-ass man. And CM Punk has always represented himself as a grown-ass man, and I just don't think they need a Hobby Lobby beaded bracelet in order to tell the story. So then we cut to the back and we get the first appearance of Chad Gable alive and well, walking in, giant welt on his head, and we kind of get the confirmation that, okay, this is a thing. Chad Gable is alive. He's okay. He's doing well, and he at some point will perform tonight, and he has security. So we get kind of the foreshadowing of what the night's going to be as far as the Wyatt Six, and that leads us into Braun Breaker versus Ludwig Kaiser. Okay? I'm not going to take a long time to break down things that we all know. Braun Breaker's a stud, man. Braun Breaker is impressive. He every week he continues to impress. I think he's being booked tremendously well. I think that Braun Breaker is being booked to look like an absolute star while still not having to squash opponents. That's important to me. Because WWE used to have this little trope that they used where a guy would just come out and squash. And he would just, it was squashes until he got to real talent. I think Braun Breaker continues to look like a main event guy while being put in matches that challenge him. I love this little IC kind of triangle square that we got going on between Sami Zayn, Braun Breaker, Ludwig Kaiser, and Sheamus. I love it because everybody has an interesting motivation in the IC right now. And this is what we always talk about wrestling. This was always what was missing was, what's the reason why? Why should we care? And right now, each one of these guys have their own kind of unique motivation that we can lay into to understand what they're going for, right? Kaiser is following in the footsteps of Gunther. So that makes sense, right? He sees Big Brother do it. This is the path to the top. This is what Imperium does. We take the Intercontinental Championship, we make it prestigious, and we move forward. Sheamus is looking for a Grand Slam. Sheamus needs the IC title to complete the story. That works for me, right? Then you have Braun Breaker, who feels like he has something to prove, like he's been disrespected. That works for me. And then you have Sami Zayn, who still has something to prove and is holding on to the title, and that all works for me. The IC title right now, super effective, super good storytelling. Sheamus getting involved, Kaiser getting involved the week before, Braun Breaker being frustrated. This is all like, you talk about clean and put together. This is interweaving stories. This is how a title situation should look. Not just two guys. That's the story. We have multiple angles we can go. We don't know where we go from here. We know we're getting Braun Breaker and Sami Zayn at Money in the Bank, but we don't know where we go from there. We don't know what's next. So I like that. So I scored this segment a 7 out of 10. It was great. Super effective. They're selling me on the Intercontinental Championship situation. So then we cut to the back. We get a little bit more Judgment Day. We find out that Liv Morgan has dropped off some gifts. This kind of foreshadowing. I like what I will say. What I like about Monday Night Raw right now that Triple H is doing is it feels so cohesive, right? It feels like we go to the ring, we get some action, and then we get to kind of sneak peek of what's going on in the back. And then we go back to the ring and we get more action, and then we get to go check on the guys in the back. And Monday Night Raw, with that feel, it doesn't feel so long. The 3 hours doesn't feel so bad when we're jumping back and forth and there's a story being told all night. And we're getting set up. Like with the Chad Gable, we're getting set up and foreshadowing stories ahead. With Liv Morgan, we're getting set up. We're shadowing stories ahead. And I like that. You lay the seeds. You keep me interested. And I can't do the fast forward thing anymore because I'm going to miss that important backstage segment that normally wasn't a big deal. Normally I could just, run right through that. So then we came back and we get Lyra Valkyria, Shayna Baszler, and Kairi Sane. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on some of these matches because to me, I don't have a ton of interest in this match. What I will say about this is whatever Lyra Valkyria did to get the attention of Triple H, she definitely has the favor as she continues to get pushed. And rightfully so. I'm behind her. I think out of these three people, I think it was the right choice. I don't want Kairi Sane and Io Sky. I don't need a ton of Damage Control on my TV every week. I've kind of run my course with Damage Control. I think that they need something to happen to make them interesting again, because the funny thing is, I dog on Bayley all the time. Like, I dog on Bayley all the time and say I don't get it. But then the minute Bayley is removed from Damage Control, they become uninteresting to me. So maybe it's just Bayley is that piece that holds things together and makes it interesting. I think it's Bayley as a heel. I definitely think it's Bayley as a heel. But Damage Control right now, not interesting me. So I'm not interested in Kairi Sane being in Money in the Bank. Shayna Baszler, just one of the most misbooked people in all of WWE. But at this point, I don't know. She's starting to feel like a journeyman, starting to feel a little bit like a Natalya, like a break glass in case of an emergency, a good heel to insert into a situation. I don't know if it's just association to Ronda Rousey. I don't know what it is. Triple H seems to like Shayna Baszler, but it just feels like she's not going to ever get over the top of that mountain. So that leaves us with Lyra Valkyria, which, all right, let's push her. Next Becky Lynch, I guess, but let's keep doing it. When we talk about effectiveness, this was an effective match, 7 out of 10. It was a great match. Once again, the women are showing out. Like, the crowds are there for the women. They definitely, another "this is awesome" chant for a triple threat women's match, which just goes to show you, even if we're not interested, or if I'm not interested in what's on TV, they're still putting out a hell of a product. So then we get Liv Morgan. We get Liv Morgan coming out to cut a promo, and I have to say, in the weeks past, every time I saw Liv Morgan, I did one of these I clinched up a little bit. I didn't know what was about to come. I have to say, this week, with what Liv has done in the last couple of weeks, Liv's got it. Liv's got it figured out. Liv and Dominic have it figured out. They know who they are. And sometimes knowing who you are is more important than being talented in professional wrestling. Understanding what your role is more important than going out and just being perfect. And Liv Morgan has figured out what her role is. She understands who she is to the IWC. She understands who she is to the casual fan. She understands where she fits in with the Judgment Day, and she's killing it. Liv Morgan is killing it again. Like, Liv Morgan is, I don't know, as far as championship reigns go, I think we're going to have to change our mind. I think Triple H is willing to sacrifice some of the titles for the sake of the story, and that's how wrestling should be. Don't get me twisted. That's how wrestling should be. You should sacrifice. The title should not make the person. The person should make the title. And Liv Morgan is doing an extremely good job of bringing this story together. She's making the Judgment Day feel important again. This is the new era of Liv Morgan. Laying into the crazy. Laying into the slightly mature themes. Getting a sloppy seconds chant. That's the new Liv Morgan. That's what we have right now. And this is the role that she was meant to play. She has a little bit of that AJ Lee in her, that undersized, that little bit of crazy that sells and gets people excited to watch. Surprisingly, Liv Morgan's segment might have been my highest rated segment of the night with an 8 out of 10. I think it's amazing. I think she is tying together the show, and she makes it interesting to watch. After that, once again, just more intertwining of backstage stuff. It's so perfect. We go from ring to the back, from ring to the back. But then we go back to the ring and we get Braun Strowman versus Chad Gable versus Bronson Reed. Guys, this is the one that I didn't understand. This is the match of the night where I looked at it and I go, oh, okay. Raw is still, we're still human. Triple H is still human. Because this felt messy to me, and I understand the reasons you do this. I understand some of the stories intertwining, and I understand you can't hit a home run. Every time you swing, you can't hit a home run. But this felt messy. This felt like just styles that don't go together. Braun Strowman, extremely swift. Bronson Reed's one of those guys to me. I get how athletic he is, but sometimes there's just certain things that certain guys don't need to do, no matter how capable they are. I don't need Bronson Reed suicide diving. I just don't think that's the most effective use of Bronson Reed at this point. And then you have Chad Gable, who seemingly last week there was an attempted murder on his life. This week he's perfectly fine to wrestle. I don't want to jump into going after the Wyatt Six so early, but I don't love the idea of kind of no-selling how big that catastrophe was just a week ago. There are guys who have less happen and are out for 2 to 3 weeks. To have what happened to you where people, Triple H came out on Pat McAfee, goes, it's funny that the crowd said he was murdered. He's not murdered. No, Triple H, fuck you. It looked like he was murdered. Like, it looked like he was dead. And so we come back in the next week and Chad Gable has a small bump on his head. I don't love it. I don't love it. I do feel like it took a little bit away from what we saw last week was a murder scene. And what we got this week is one guy with a bump on his head. I can't say that I love it. But this was a messy match to me. I like Gable winning. It makes sense. I like Gable and Money in the Bank. Where does this leave Bronson Reed? I don't know. Bronson Reed seems to be the guy who gets right up to the point of like getting over and then they pull him back. I fear that Bronson Reed has a little bit of that, what was his name? The Funkasaurus cat. He feels a little bit like that. Like they don't quite know how to turn him into the ultimate monster that he can be. And maybe it's coming down the line, but it felt like, he's getting a little bit of that start and stop push. And I don't love that for Bronson Reed. But this was all set up to get the Wyatt Six in the ring with Gable again. We got to figure out what the intentions are of the Wyatt Six. That will, time will tell. I'm not worried about that. I will say, this is something I'll say. And to go on record, I still do love the whole aspect of the Wyatt Six. I think they're great for wrestling. I'm not down on it. I'm just having to be objective when I talk about it. I do think that coming off of last week and the visuals of last week, how perfect those visuals were and how it did feel like a horror movie, I have to be objective and talk about, I think the Nikki Cross thing was a little bit hokey. Like the smoke coming out from under the ring, the crawling, giving Michael Cole a package. I don't like, if this is what we're in for the next 6 months, fingers crossed they can keep pulling it off. But I don't think the execution this week was as flawless as it was last week. Now we'll get to the videotape in a minute, but out of that whole segment was a 5 out of 10. It was just okay match. And I think that the Nikki Cross coming out from under the ring looked just okay. I don't think it was as big as what we got the week before. So then we go to the back again. We get Gable teasing the Creeds. This has been talked about. You guys have been telling me this for a long time. I'm all in on this. It makes sense. The way we're intertwining storylines, great. Nothing wrong there. Don't need to talk about that. Come back to the ring. We get Alba Fire and Ilsa Dawn versus Katana Chance and Caden Carter. I'm not even going to talk about this. I'm going to say one thing about it. Tag team titles are immediately uninteresting again. I guess we take them off of Bianca and we take them off of Jade and we go, well, fuck it. We don't need to do anything interesting with that. Because to me, I have no reason to watch this. There's nothing. I have no investment in any of these women to go, this is where I want to watch. And then you have Damage Control get involved. I guess they want the tag team titles back. Like I said, Damage Control has become less interesting over the past couple weeks. So this feels like I always say in wrestling, there's the something to do storyline. This feels like the something to do storyline. Like, oh, we have a bunch of people who need something to do. Throw them all over here. I guess Bianca and Jade are moving on to bigger things at this point. That's a 5 out of 10 for me, that segment. Just okay. Then we go to the back. We get Finn Balor with Liv Morgan and Damian Priest coming out and saying that it looks sketchy. Once again, we're just laying threads. Like we're dropping breadcrumbs. I love this. This is what Triple H is doing so much better than everybody else in professional wrestling, and that is he's dropping breadcrumbs. We don't know. I don't know where this Judgment Day thing is going. I don't know if it's really Dom and Liv. I don't know if it's really Finn and Liv. I don't know if it's I don't know. I just can't wait for Rhea to come back. I think this is an intriguing storyline. This, for everything I talked shit about Liv Morgan, about Judgment Day needing a refresh, this was it. Like Triple H perfectly put all the ingredients in a pot, stirred it up, and it was perfect. And that led us to a Damian Priest promo where Damian Priest comes out and once again, Damian Priest continues to exceed my expectations when he gets in the ring. Like every time Damian Priest comes out, he exceeds my expectations. He is a champion. He makes me feel like he's representing Monday Night Raw. And I know there's this big contingency of people in the IWC that want to see Seth Rollins versus Gunther at SummerSlam. And I saw a whole write-up before I came on today about somebody writing an article how this is being booked for Seth Rollins to go over Damian Priest. I just don't see it that way. That's not the vibes I'm getting from this storyline. And maybe I'm naive. Maybe being a casual fan, I am naive. But what I'm getting, the vibes I'm getting from this, if I'm trying to book this in my head, is what I'm getting is that Damian Priest has had 2 wins in his title run that are questionable, right? Help from the Judgment Day, help from CM Punk. So he doesn't have that solidifying victory. And it feels like to me bringing Seth Rollins back is a way to put the first legitimate W in Damian Priest's title run. I'm not so sure that this is a transitional title run as Damian Priest continues to come out and cook and continues to come out and instill confidence in his title run. I don't think it's ending at SummerSlam. I don't think it's ending at Money in the Bank. I don't even know if it's ending now in Germany. I think Damian may run this thing a little longer than we thought. I could see a world where Damian Priest holds on to this title for another 3 months. And I'm okay with that because he's proving himself. But Damian Priest definitely needs the big win. I think that Seth Rollins presents the opportunity for that big win. I don't want another Seth Rollins title run right now. I do think that Seth Rollins has crossed the line for me of being a corny babyface. I know that's not for everybody. I know there's a lot of people who still love Seth Rollins, but for me, he comes off a little corny. I don't love the Cruella DeVille dressing. I do think Rollins is in need of a slight character shift. You don't have to change, but we could shift. We don't need to come out dressed as Disney characters and then me supposed to still take you seriously against a guy who's like a legitimate 6'7", 240 pounds. And like, you know, I get Seth is one of the best to do it, but he comes off a little bit corny to me. So as far as being effective, we got Gunther coming out and talking. We got a little hokey stipulation involved. What was the stipulation? It's if Seth wins, Damian has to leave the Judgment Day, which is always kind of weird that like my goal is to get you out of the group you're in. That's fine. And if Seth loses, he can never challenge for the World Heavyweight Championship as long as Damian's champion. That's fine because we assume at best this has 3 more months and we assume that the next title contender is Gunther. So, okay, hokey stipulation, that's fine. 6 out of 10. 6 out of 10. That's a 6 out of 10 for me. So now we can talk about the VHS tape, right? The VHS tape was given to Michael Cole, who we assume if Pat McAfee was there, he would have been the one to get the VHS tape that it's been teased all week, and that's what they were leading up to. We didn't get that. We got Michael Cole getting it. But what we got out of that was one of the realest promos we've probably ever seen as WWE fans. One of the coolest things. The production value on this made up for what we saw with Nikki Cross. There were points in time I was confused. I'm like, this is the same person talking to each other. This is done so well. I think the explanation by Bo Dallas was the right one. I like the idea that basically you guys just forgot. You guys just forgot. My brother dies and you guys just forgot. You guys acted like you didn't need this. Well, hyperbole, I don't think anybody forgot. I think everybody still wanted this. We all talked about it. You drug it on a little bit long, Bo. You drug it on a little bit long, but this has been worth it so far. And I think this promo, this is going to go over a lot of people's heads. Like the depth of this story is a Bray Wyatt story. And for that, it is going to go over a lot of people's heads. A lot of people are going to go, oh, this is just a horror movie. But I think there's deeper notes to this whole story that people are missing, that at the end of the day, this is a dedication. This is really like a monument. This is like building a statue. This is finishing the legacy of Bray Wyatt and doing it in a way that makes sense. I went back and watched it again because I thought it was so good. I think in the weeks to come, I think we are going to see everything that Bo Dallas should have been his entire career. It's sad that his brother has to die for him to get the opportunity to do this, but this made up to me for the kind of hokiness of what we saw earlier to me. And so I'm excited. I am. Like I'm sold on the Wyatt 6. They sold me. Week 1, it was different. I get it. I know they have to wrestle at some point. I understand that I've said from the beginning, the potential for this to go downhill is extremely high. It is hard to sustain this level of gimmick over a long period of time. Ask The Undertaker. The Undertaker did it, but I don't think it was easy. I know that I've seen a lot of people upset that like on Monday night last week, you go beat up half of the locker room and then later that night, you're taking a picture at Whataburger. I get it. Like, I get it. I think that's just kind of the new school mentality. But like I said, I'm behind this. I'm behind the Wyatt 6. I'm behind it. I'm going to give it a chance. I'm not going to be overly critical. I will be objective, but I won't be overly critical of what I see on a weekly basis because I think a lot of this is uncharted territory. A lot of this is kind of experimental booking. I think Triple H going on Pat McAfee and kind of saying like, I might need you guys to suspend your belief a little bit, right? We can't just go straight to Chad Gable's dead because this is wrestling. And you guys have been asking for gimmicks and you have been asking for more character work. So we gotta be a little more lenient when we see these things in that we have to suspend belief that guys can come back the next week, that they can, that these aren't murders. This is just a wrestling situation. So last thing of the night, we got Finn Balor and JD McDonough versus R-Truth and The Miz. All thanks to Liv Morgan, the seeds planted all night. Liv Morgan approaching R-Truth in the back, talking to him, convincing him that love prevails over all, and getting a title match for the Judgment Day. Look, I mean, like I said, this is the booking of Triple H we're getting, and this is what makes these shows so fun to watch. The R-Truth honeymoon is over, and that's okay. R-Truth can go back to being what R-Truth does best. He doesn't need to be a tag team champion to be effective. He got his WrestleMania moment. He got a nice little run with the titles. We don't, like, at a certain point, it was going to run thin that those championships just weren't part of a story. It's always better when you can reinsert titles into storylines that are meaningful. So we take the tag titles out of just kind of limbo and bouncing around, and we insert them into a story that makes sense. Now, I need the Judgment Day to continue to defend these and not have all these titles just tied up in a story that goes nowhere, but I like the fact I see the deeper meaning here. I see the deeper meaning here with Liv Morgan. I see that Rhea Ripley goes away and Liv Morgan is doing more for the Judgment Day than any other member has done in the entirety of the group, right? It's always been kind of this weird dynamic in the Judgment Day that while we're a group, it's every man for himself. And Liv Morgan has kind of come in and opened the door for the, let me help you out. Let me help you out. Let me help you out. Let me get you a title shot. Let me get involved in your match. And so what we know about Rhea Ripley was at the end of her kind of Judgment Day run before she got hurt, she was not coming out with the group anymore. She was not helping the group. She had kind of gone off on her solo ride. And you see Damian continue to kind of preach, I don't need the Judgment Day. So to have Liv Morgan, there's a deeper meaning to have Liv Morgan show up and kind of bring the team together, to get them opportunities, to help them win tag team championships, and to see them celebrate together, to see her check on Dominic Mysterio. Look, the argument has to be made. Rhea Ripley, where are you? Your man's down on the floor, and Liv Morgan's there helping him out. That's a you thing, Rhea. You got to get back. You got to protect your domain. But this has all been good. This is all good. I love great ending to Monday Night Raw. This character is tailor-made for Liv Morgan. This crazy character, but this kind of empathetic crazy, right? Because ultimately, Liv is doing good things for the Judgment Day. There's going to be this turn in a minute that happens where they're going to begin questioning, do we need Rhea back? And that's when Rhea shows up, and that's when the fireworks start. And that's the booking of Triple H. 7 out of 10. 7 out of 10 on the last match. I think it was great. I think overall, Monday Night Raw this week, 7 out of 10. 7 out of 10. I don't think it was the best. I think, once again, there are chips in Triple H's armor where you can still see some of that Vince McMahon just beaten into the mentality of the booking, some of the Bronson Reed and Braun Strowman, but some of those things I think you have no choice. You have a limited amount of time. You got to put guys in the ring. You got to tell stories. So some of it I think is just natural booking ups and downs. I think that, once again, the problem is wrestling fans. We all do this. As a casual fan, I do this. The expectation gets raised, and now the expectation is that it needs to be like this all the time. And that's tough because wrestling's a roller coaster. It's going to drop back down at some point. We can't sustain this level of high forever, but right now we are definitely on the uptick. And so this was a 7 out of 10 just based on, I think, how good last week was and how good the last SmackDown was. If you just take this out of context, it was probably more of an 8 out of 10. This was probably more of an 8 out of 10. So let's see what you guys were saying during the show here. Mike will be on the show later tonight. This is Tuesday. I'm doing double episodes. I have to be at a swim meet tomorrow, so I will not be able to go live tomorrow at all. Raw was good, Danish. I agree. I said 7 out of 10 based on what we've seen lately. 8 out of 10 if I take it out of context. I definitely think so. Yeah, highlight of the night was the Bo Dallas segment. 100%. Like, I can't harp on it enough. I think the problem is that this Bo Dallas and this Wyatt Six stuff may go over some people's heads. It may just be too different. It may be a little too big for some people to grasp what is going on, because it's not just wrestling. It's more than wrestling. It is a monument being built. It is an appreciation of Bray Wyatt that we're seeing all come together. And I think it's the telling of the story that Bray always wanted to tell, and we always knew he could tell, but he never got to tell. Pat McAfee's father-in-law passed away. Didn't know that. That sucks. Thoughts and prayers to Pat McAfee. That sucks. That bad timing. That sucks. That feels like, ooh. Randall says, this is also a bit of a copy of what Malachi Black did to Edge by taking his wedding ring a few weeks ago. Yeah, I admittedly did not watch AEW. I don't know what that is, but a wedding ring to me feels much more symbolic than a beaded bracelet. And Denise, I saw you say that sometimes silly things are okay. I agree. Silly things are okay. I don't think you need to insert a silly thing into a situation that doesn't need that silly thing. This story was fine. This was already the best story in all of professional wrestling. I don't think it needed the taking of the bracelet to put it over the top. In fact, it's one of those things that when it happens, it almost gets me thinking like, oh, this is taking me out of the moment a little bit. Randall, thank you. Bronson Reed is too big. Yeah, he's just like, big guys don't have to. I don't get it's Undertaker's fault. Undertaker was the guy who was athletic enough to get people to jump over the top of the ropes, and so now everybody thinks that they have to do a suicide dive. He's too big. Number one, I don't want Bronson Reed landing on me. Number two, I don't want Bronson Reed flying like that because of just the potential of injury. I don't love it. Let's see, Doobie. Yes, people who haven't followed Bray since WWE NXT with his other gimmicks, with his two members in the initial days of NXT when it was Yellow Brand, Wyatt Six will go so deep that it will go over. Yes. Yeah. 100%. That is the problem. That the Wyatt Six stuff is going to have levels to it. There's going to be the surface level stuff that is for the casual fan like myself who gets to see and enjoy what it is on the surface, but there is going to be so many layers of depth to this that it's meant for a deep. There are people on TikTok and on YouTube who are going to break this down and then break down the breakdown and then break down the breakdown of the breakdown because it goes so deep down the rabbit hole. It is. Where the hell is Dijak? I don't know. I don't know. They pull him off of NXT. They draft him to Monday Night Raw, and it just feels like there's nothing for him. I don't know what the reason for drafting him is if you don't have a story prepared. Dijak, feels like he's going to end up in, I have a category of wrestlers, Damian Sandow, Elias. I think Dijak is going to, he was on Speed the other week. DJ Wavy D says that's the problem with Speed. That's the problem with Speed. Nobody's watching. Like, I don't get on Twitter, so I don't know what's going on there. And that feels like a weird place to put Dijak. I don't know if that's his audience. Speed feels like the place that Ricochet was perfect for. They didn't market it correctly. What'd you say, DJ Wavy D? Bronson Reed hits the dive smoother than most cruiserweights. Never seen him get straight. I'm not arguing you, DJ Wavy D, that he is not extremely efficient. Bronson Reed is very good. Let's get that straight. I am not arguing his capabilities. I think the sad part is what you're saying is 100% true. He does this better than most. I just don't know if the risk is worth the reward. I just feel like that is a lot of man to have landing on Chad Gable. It just feels like the opportunity for injury outweighs the benefit of that dive. Dijak is so freaking good in the ring. He can talk. I just think he's on the older side. He might also have backstage beef with Viewpoints. I don't know enough about Dijak to know his backstory or what he does. I do know that he's entertaining. I've seen him on social media. He's entertaining. I've seen him a couple times in the ring. He's entertaining. If it's backstage politics, that sucks. That sucks. It always sucks when that shit gets involved. Because, like I said, Damian Sandow, Elias, those are wrestlers that I connect with that I think are fun on TV that just never got the opportunity to fully bloom. How does a jobber like Kiana James get TV time, but Dijak isn't inserted? Just insert him somewhere in Money in the Bank. I don't care. The dude is good. Yeah, I'm with you, Doobie. I'm with you. I don't usually like to draw the comparison between the women's division and the men's because I think the opportunities are different. I think that Kiana James is at a different place in her career than Dijak, right? They're just now starting to build what Kiana James is, whereas Dijak is pretty established. Like, he's kind of got it all figured out. I think that the reality is they just don't know what to do with him. Last thing I'm going to touch on here, Dijak is in the wrong generation, man. Would have been a world champion. I agree. I agree with that 100%. I think that sometimes you're just a victim of circumstance. You're a victim of like being ahead or after your time. Last one. We'll do this last one, Doobie. How do you think the Creed brothers will unite with Chad Gable? It's interesting. I think that it's going to start with like an empathetic situation of Gable is going to try to pull Otis back in, and there's a chance that this thing all gets turned on its head and Otis ends up the heel in this situation. I think that Triple H right now is doing this thing where he dangles a story in front of us and it's like, look over here, and then we do something different. I think there's a possibility that Otis turns heel. There's also just the straightforward possibility that they're there for him. He begins to train them and they take on the mentality of Chad Gable, and we end up with a Alpha Academy versus Gable storyline, which I think is the most likely situation we see. But that is it for this episode. Make sure to join the Casual Wrestling membership if you haven't already. I will be putting that link in the description of this video, and then it will be in the description from now on. You'll be able to do that. Thank you guys, as always, for taking time to hang out. I am Nerdy D. You guys are the Casual Wrestling faction, and we will talk more about pro wrestling tomorrow.